Well, in case you thought they'd given up, the Democrats plan to launch a new probe this fall that could well carry into the full election cycle of 2020. I'm Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle Now. And Bill, Democrats at the House Judiciary Committee say that they will begin a major investigation this fall into President Trump's activities regarding payments made during his 2016 election campaign to a porn star and a former Playboy model, Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal. Crimes for which Michael Cohen, the president's former personal lawyer, is already doing some time. Bill, we have no way of adjudicating these issues on this show. The evidence hasn't been laid out as clearly before us as it will be before them. But just in general, what do you think of being an incumbent presidential candidate going into an election year with the media and the Democrats all chattering about your hush money payments to a porn star and a Playboy model?
Well, I think given the things that they've been chattering about the whole time, I think that's pretty much an indication that not only are they out of ammo, but they're pretty much out of rocks at this point. Look, I'm delighted. I really am. I'm delighted. The more the American people get to face the choice between Donald Trump and the people who have nothing but non-Donald Trump stories, in other words, stories that don't produce anything, stories that don't produce any evidence, any actionable evidence, we will have seen that the last 4 years of the Democratic Party, when they could have been promoting serious alternatives to the Republican idea of governance, if they had any, it's just yet another indication that they don't. And if they really, you really do have to start wondering at what point it's going to sink in, even to progressives, that not only is there no coon up this tree, but also nobody knows where the tree is and nobody cares.
Bill, I think the Democrats would argue that they would and have been advancing serious ideas. They just don't have the votes to get them passed. However, because they do control the House of Representatives, they do have the ability to do these probes. So essentially what they're saying is politically, this is something we can do.
Politically, what they're saying is this is something we have to do, Scott. There's a difference. Politically, they're saying this is something we have to do. The 2018 election turned on this giant, we must get this, this Cheeto Nazi out of power. And so the people who were elected were generally elected because of their promises to bring Donald Trump to justice. Well, 2 years of Mueller probe, we get nothing. All these other collusion things, we get nothing. All the rest of this stuff, we get nothing. And now we're going to look into whether or not Donald Trump made a payment to a person prior to him becoming president, and they're going to get nothing out of it. I really honestly do think that no matter how many times they fail at this attempt, and no matter how, and this is the part that's just mind-boggling to me, and no matter how many times prominent Republicans and non-prominent Republicans say, we don't care, I don't know what it's going to take for these people to realize that to point out that Donald Trump has done some things that they find a little boorish is not going to affect the country's opinion of him. Everybody knew that when he was elected. So once again, the question becomes, is there any actionable legal exposure for the president here? Now, these things took place before he was president. Is that right?
That's true. And Bill, the hush money payments really were not known before the 2016 election. Those came to light afterward. One might argue that a lot of, let's say, evangelical Christians who might be put off by the president's infidelity or alleged infidelity here, and even by the alleged unethical and perhaps criminal acts of hush money payments to people at the time could have said, well, you know what? We got him elected. He's appointing the kind of judiciary candidates that we like. There's nothing we can do about it now. But are those same people going to go out and go to bat for the president and pony up the money for his campaign when basically what the campaign is saying is we need more hush money to shut up the Democrats?
Oh, these dear people, bless their hearts, So what they're telling us is that evangelicals who voted for Donald Trump in 2016, despite the audio tapes of, grabbing people, by parts of their anatomy, despite all of this mud and dreck that they were able to dredge up on Donald Trump. Look, which much of it does exist. He was a real estate developer in New York. I don't know if anybody here is shocked by any of this stuff. I'm certainly not. So if they're telling me that people would elect him in 2016 as an unknown quantity, secretly terrified that he may in fact be basically a cover Democrat, a Bill Clinton Democrat in the best case possible scenario, voted for him anyway. If they're trying to tell me that people who voted for him, knowing full well the kind of language he's employed, knowing full well all of these smears against his personal character, are now suddenly not going to, because allegedly one person may have paid money for somebody else to basically settle something out of court. That's essentially what hush money is. He didn't put a gun to her head. It's not blackmail. Hush money is a settlement. It's an agreement.
I'm not saying they're not going to vote for him. What I'm suggesting is that they might be less than enthusiastic about campaigning for him and about contributing to his campaign. They will hold their noses and say, well, we've got to vote for this guy again because he does what we like, but we don't have to like what he does.
Now, my point, it's a nice turn of phrase there, but my point is that Donald Trump standing among the people who voted for him conditionally, which is what they're trying to flip here, right? Your entire argument that you're making here is that this will affect those people who may have thought differently about Donald Trump after hearing that there was hush money may or may not have been paid. So what you're trying to say here is that there are marginal players who are going to abandon Donald Trump as a result of this. And I think that's absolutely dead on, completely insane. I think every single marginal voter for Donald Trump in 2016 has moved solidly towards Donald Trump's camp. And the more they do this, the more solidly people move. You know, the more of this they do, it's been said since Donald Trump entered the race, let alone since he became the nominee or the president, that the more you do this to Donald Trump, the more the people who elected Donald Trump are convinced that this is the only guy who can stop this kind of character assassination nonsense. So the Democrats they have a two-pronged strategy. The two-pronged strategy is, let's see if we can make people lose confidence in Donald Trump. Good luck with that. And the second thing is, our actual policies and our actual politics of the Democratic Party are the politics of the Green New Deal and of
Medicare for all.
Reparations. This is the party that stands for all of these things. And the reason that you don't hear much about this, and the reason that you do hear about all these attempts to bring Donald Trump low, is because they are fully aware that if they start talking about what they really believe, they are going to precipitate the Democratic Party split that I've been talking about for well over a year. I've been talking about since the election of 2018.
Well, there's a third part of this strategy, Bill, and that is the impeachment play, which frankly has come a cropper, as they used to say, after the Mueller report didn't seem to pan out the way they had hoped. And so now this is clearly another avenue to try to push that impeachment narrative. And in this case, once again, they're trying to make the case that even though federal prosecutors didn't press charges against President Trump, there's a different standard for impeachment. And if we have a sitting president of the United States who had to pay hush money to his mistresses, both of whom come from sort of seamy careers, there may be grounds here to get enough votes in the House of Representatives to file articles of impeachment.
So just so we're clear for everybody, so everybody understands the process when we use that term, because that term is often misunderstood. The House, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, you know more about this than I do. The House of Representatives is empowered to begin process of impeachment, the process of recalling the president, but the actual vote takes place in the Senate. Is that right?
The impeachment is in effect an indictment. It is a set of charges.
Right. And then the Senate votes on whether or not these charges are sufficient to remove him from office.
Correct.
Okay, so with a Republican Senate, the chance of Donald Trump being removed from office is zero, and everybody knows it. And furthermore, not only is it zero, but if they do not even have the recommendation, if their entire grounds for an impeachment movement is predicated on actions on the part of the president, for which special prosecutors or any other number of people that have been digging into his past for the last 4 or 5 years, if they can't turn up enough evidence to even recommend prosecution of charges, they're going to have a tough case to make.
Well, it's not that they couldn't turn up evidence, Bill. The federal prosecutors, in essence, at least the signal that they sent to the Democrats in a Democrat's mind seemed to be the only reason we didn't charge Donald Trump is because he's president of the United States.
The only reason they didn't charge Donald Trump is because the only reason they didn't charge Donald Trump was because there was no evidence for charging Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is the first person I'm aware of, certainly since, well, I can't think of another example, where the entire idea of the presumption of innocence has gone out the window and institutionally gone out the window. That's the part that's so bloody terrifying about all of this.
Well, except that the guy who was charged and convicted and imprisoned for doing this payment said to federal prosecutors that he was doing so at the direction of the president.
Well, this
or
guy,
at that time, the candidate.
We're talking about Flynn?
No, Michael Cohen.
Cohen.
Personal lawyer.
Right. Well, this guy is a known perjurer, and he's lied about any number of things before, and none of this really matters, Scotty. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to us anyway. So since you want to take this sort of meta view about this, let's just take this meta view. It is possible, I suppose, in the time remaining to the Democrats for them to muster enough votes to actually launch the impeachment process of Donald Trump. I suppose that is certainly technically possible. Now, we all know that if that happens, Donald Trump will not be removed from office because the number because our lead in the Senate actually increased over the 2018 election. So Donald Trump is not going anywhere. And they know he's not going anywhere. And since they know he's not going anywhere, to do this is simply just another case of mudslinging and political posturing, which I think the American people will have had enough of.
There's another scenario too.
Hold on. If you look back on the last time we saw impeachment proceedings brought against a sitting president, against Bill Clinton, there was absolutely no question whatsoever that the man perjured himself. He perjured himself on video. There's direct, concrete evidence of him perjuring himself on video. Those were the charges that were brought against the president in 1998 against Bill Clinton, and there was no vote to remove him from office. And furthermore, it hurt the Republicans quite a bit by bringing this because it was perceived by the American people that this was a witch hunt. Now, in the case of Bill Clinton, it turns out that he was a perjurer, obviously. He was doing all of these things, obviously. Turns out he was a rapist as well. But all of the things that he was accused of were provable and proven, and still he wasn't removed from office, and still the American people made that blow up in the face of the people who were launching this so-called investigation because it was perceived to be purely political. I'm sorry, I'm not worried about it, and to me it is yet another example of the fact that the Democrats don't have anything, nothing, zero, that they can put in front of the American people that the American people will buy as long as they hear the actual story of what it is they want. Why do you think there are so many illegal aliens admitted into California? Why do you think, and Texas and all the rest, why do you think there are constant efforts to make sure that these people have not only driver's licenses but voting rights? Why do you think that every single time any effort to determine that a person is a legal actual voter is blocked by the Democrats, the only reason you would want to block cheating, attempts at limiting cheating, is if you want to cheat? So we all know how the table's set. Everybody knows how the table's set. We know how it's set. They know how it's set. They can only win by having people who can't legally vote.
Bill, so far, your case has been predicated on a Republican-led Senate. I can see a scenario in which the Democrats view this particular set of probes as opening up a second front in the 2020 election and essentially saying, look, just in case we can't nominate a candidate who can actually win the presidential election in 2020, at the very least, we can get the impeachment ball rolling so that it will become fuel for the fire of getting more Democrats elected to the Senate. We recapture, and I'm speaking for Democrats here, we recapture the Senate in November of 2020, and then the impeachment charges are brought in the Senate and the president is ejected, accomplishing something in the Senate that we could not accomplish at the ballot box.
Okay, and then we have President Mike Pence. Right?
Maybe they're okay with that.
Maybe they are. But I do not think that this narrative is going to go the way that they think it's going to go, Scotty. And I don't think it's going to go the way they think it's going to go for reasons that are going to just shock people who watch this. They're not going to take this as seriously as they should. But the reason that they're not going to get the result they wanted is because I have watched in the space of 6 or 7 months, I have watched millennial voters who are left-wing, Bernie voting socialists become so absolutely filled with hatred and loathing of the social justice warrior progressive branch of the Democratic Party that they are now rock-rib conservatives. I've seen it happen in front of my eyes. The inability of the left to stay out of people's fun, business, churches, religion, sports, their insistence on infiltrating everything has turned an entire generation. I'm hearing it from everybody now. I'm hearing it from gamers who had no political interests whatsoever, saying these damned progressives and their agendas and their social justice warrior lessons and their destruction of everything that we hold dear, so that we learn our lesson that women are just as great at fighting with swords as men are, and all the rest of this thing. If they think that this is winning, they're wrong. They are losing massively. They're losing all across the board on the cultural table. And I think that this is simply going to be another example that these people have absolutely nothing going for them other than this bitter resentment of the one man who has done the one thing that they cannot tolerate, which is simply not cared about what they think of him. The whole entire progressive agenda is predicated on getting people to shut up and do what they say, because if you don't, they will not censor you through the government. We're armed against that particular possibility. The entire progressive idea now is you will shut up, do what we say, give us what we want, or we will destroy you in public. And we've seen it again and again and again. And every time they do it, it becomes clearer to people and more disgusting to people, more repugnant to people. The Brett Kavanaugh case swung a lot of people away from the Democratic Party, because even Democratic women could see that Blasey Ford was lying through her bangs. So I'm not concerned. As a matter of fact, I'm relieved. The thing that I am most concerned about is that somebody will put forward some kind of a coherent, sensible reason to vote for the Democrats as opposed to voting against Donald Trump. The people who are going to vote against Donald Trump are already voting against Donald Trump. I'm sure they love this idea because it accomplishes nothing. It's actually kind of, when you get right down to it, it's actually kind of the progressive kind of holy grail. It makes a lot of noise and it makes the people doing it look good. It has no chance of actually occurring, won't accomplish anything good in the world, and in point of fact will actually probably harm people, but that doesn't matter. The most important thing is that there seem to be these virtuous angels of retribution and decency. When to simply close this discussion on a slightly more favorable term, if the Democrats genuinely, seriously want to make 2020 an election about morality and behavior, they're going to have a lot of splaining to do. A lot of splaining to do when it comes to Epstein and Bill Clinton and all the rest of it, and Harvey Weinstein and all of the rest of these monsters who have been enormous Democratic Party backers from the beginning, and who the press will not report on, but whom Donald Trump will report on. And so, again, it's an indication to me of how bankrupt they are, and it's an indication to me that they are going to fail spectacularly when push comes to shove in 2020.
Bill Whittle Now is a production of the members at BillWhittle.com. You can join their ranks today. Just go to BillWhittle.com and click that Become a Member link. For Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks for watching.